What's up, Call of Duty fans? Welcome back to the playoff picture, or my 12 on 12 in 12 series. This video is going to be a little bit longer. I had a good long sit down with head coach Revan of the New York Subliners to talk about his squad and what he thinks about everything going forward to playoffs. But this is a team that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about because, yes, they're the number 5 seed overall going into the playoffs, and they put together a very good run at their own home series. But when they came back for London, not the greatest of showcases for them. They win their first match 3-0, then lose the next two 0-3. So, are they really truly a number 5 team going into this playoff? I think you can argue yes, and let me tell you why. The New York Subliners is a team that's been categorized by really just Mack. That's been the whole story. As soon as Mack comes into this roster, the New York Subliners start to get better and better and better. Before he shows up on this squad, the New York Subliners were 1-6, only winning 8 maps, losing 19. It's not good. It was one of the worst in the league. And at a point in time, before we heard the rumors of Mack, the New York Subliners are my last placed team on my power rankings. But since Mack, they've gone 12-11 and 49-41 overall in maps. This has been good enough for them to be sitting pretty much right across the middle of the board in all of the overall Call of Duty League rankings, with the exception of their hardpoint, where they are the 4th best hardpoint team by statistics currently in the CDL. A plus 6-point differential on average is good, and beyond that, even though they rank 9th in both the search and destroy and the domination, both have continued to trend up throughout the entirety of the year. So that's all good news. But when it comes to this New York Subliners team in total, what are you mostly looking for outside of Mack? Because what Mack has been able to do this year has been extremely special. The reason why the New York Subliners were so good at their own home series, some may argue that the meta swap really benefited their roster. I think that's a pretty fair argument. But what you really saw were players like accuracy starting to get a little bit more aggressive. Rather than just being a passive kind of slow sentry based AR player, he was starting to get involved and had a number of great moments in that home series weekend. Beyond that, we're starting to see that when Mack is setting a tempo and accuracy is also trying to push the issue at a more aggressive pace, you're starting to see that Attach and Zuma are going to be all-star potential caliber players in the playoffs. They have been consistent almost all year long. These are the two players that I'm looking at that if New York wants to have continued success through the upper bracket, these two players are going to have to play well. Beyond that, we've seen a little bit of a hot and cold streak from Temp, where in the New York series, he played extremely hot. A couple of really big clutch-up moments, not just in Search and Destroy, but also a number of great gunfight wins in the respawn to help secure some of those pivotal games, like the ones versus Chicago at the very end, but also including the 3-0 they were able to find in Toronto before that. So the long and short of it is, if this full roster plays at the same speed, which is a more aggressive speed than what they had throughout the majority of the regular season, and every single player is playing at that same commitment, this team's going to do very well. To get more on that, though, I had a longer talk with Revan to kind of speak about the team, and not just what Mack brings to the team individually, but how his presence has, in fact, impacted this team on a much more collective level. Joining me now is the very thirsty Revan. He's got himself a long schedule, so we got to catch him when we can. Revan, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for joining me back with this. It's I could not be more excited to talk about New York Subliners with you. It's been a long season, and we actually haven't had a chance to talk too much since the beginning of the year. So I kind of wanted to just get your take initially, because this has been a season that I think a lot of people are considering as BM and then AM, before Mack and then after Mack. The story that we have not really heard too much is what went into the scouting process and the recruiting process to grab up Mack.
Yeah, sure. That's a common question I get asked. Before I go into giving you a good answer to that, I just want to say thanks for having me on the show. Yes, I'm very thirsty. Every time I wake up, I need to immediately get caffeinated. And I'm not sure if you saw the picture I posted on my Twitter a while back, but my fridge is stocked.
Yes, it is.
So I'm ready to go at any moment. So Mack's first tournament really ever in the pro scene was at the Minnesota launch weekend. There he played with Hybrid Black. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but some of the people out there might not be familiar. He got second place at that event. So that was Mack's debut. And then unfortunately we had a slow start to the season, right? You know, we weren't living up to expectations. We were falling short in tournaments, and we were choking moments where we had leads. So it wasn't long before we were thinking about making a change, and we were kind of throwing names on the board, and Mack was definitely one of the players up there. We wanted a young player, somebody who was fresh to the scene, could bring a bit of hunger, you know, to our team and kind of add some motivation to the guys to kind of like come together and bond as a team. When it came down to Mack, really it was a lot of word of mouth. We were asking around to people who were active in the amateur scene, playing against him, going to tournaments, playing with him as well. And we heard nothing but good things. So he kind of attacked every mark that we had on players, when it comes to like attributes of what we want to pick up. He tacked them all. So we were like, let's give this kid a shot. And thank God we did. Let's go. Mack the savior. And, we really haven't looked back since picking him up.
The online season for you guys was really an overall great success for the Subliners. You make 4 straight playoffs. You're able to win your own home series in New York. But then a little bit of a meta swap happens around again. London playoffs, you guys essentially miss out on after the 0-3 loss to Paris. Was that constant changing of the meta a big factor in that performance at London versus New York? Because there was not a lot of turnaround for you guys to pick up one meta and then have to swap right back to the other.
Right, yeah, and it wasn't just with that tournament. There's a lot of switching and changing going into our own home series. So, look, it definitely didn't help, but that's not our excuse, right?
Sure.
We were able to adjust to the meta going into New York. A 10mm comes back into play. The MP5 gets a little bit better. We thought that actually make our team overall better, and I think it definitely helped with our subs. They could be a bit more impactful with it, but that's not an excuse on why we lost. We had a big long conversation after the tournament, and really came down to our communication. It's been something that we've been trying to kind of get down pat since the start of the year, and it's something that's between every team. It's always changing. There's always something you can work on. For us, we really want to make the communication between us like the pride and joy of our team, right? We want to be really prideful of how our team's coming. The way we thought of it is, even if we're playing on our worst day, as long as we have a strong base level of communication, we should be able to still win games and go deep into tournaments off the back of that. So since that tournament, that's really been one thing that we've been working on a lot in practice, just making sure that each and every day we're coming into it with a good base level of energy, communication, so that we have a strong foundation to build off of. So really at that Paris tournament, we didn't really look too much into the gameplay. We didn't look too much into the plays. We went back and listened to the comms, and that's kind of what we pinned it on. No excuses from us. We definitely underperformed. We were hoping to go deep in that tournament, but that was a fun tournament to watch regardless. It seems like every matchup that happened, there's a new 8th seed.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Regardless, one-off tournament for us. We're not letting that affect our mindset too much going into this final one of the year.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, especially considering a lot of people after that event were talking about like, oh, this was just a double AR meta that really favors the roster that New York Subliners have put together. And I think the biggest thing about that weekend was we kind of got that same storyline throughout the entire year where a lot of other talent, myself included, where you talk about New York and you sit there and say, yeah, these guys are incredible at beating teams that are in the standings below them, but consistently run into a hurdle when it tries to get past the other top 4 teams in the league. Is there anything else besides the communication that you guys feel is a needed focus, trying to go up against teams like Florida and Dallas and Atlanta that you've routinely struggled against during the regular season?
Well, yeah, I think to me, aside from communication, it has to be our search and destroy.
Okay.
To me, it's not like that we can't hang with the top 4 teams. When it comes to the respawns, we could win hardpoint against anybody, and
Sure.
Dom is hit or miss. I think what it comes down to is a lot of times, against the top teams, we go game 5. It seems like every time we play FaZe, we go game 5. Chicago, we take deep. It's just, we win usually our search and destroy map pick. It's sometimes we struggle on the other team's pick. So
Right.
we have to get stronger at some of the other maps, Gunrunner in particular. If we can kind of, just improve our search and destroy, I think we can definitely make those series a lot easier. But, we've shown that when we have a respawn down pat, we could be a top 4 contending team. So we just need to make sure that we get the job done in our respawns, continue to work at our search and destroys, and try to get that game 5 record up a little bit.
That's an interesting point. I mean, especially taking a look. I mean, the search and destroy, I'm glad that you brought that up because that was obviously one of the things that you saw progress through, especially in the last couple of weekends, especially at your own home series. You guys looked incredible in search and destroy there.
And just adding on to that point, it's not like an easy fix to make because when
No,
you
I
watch
can't
our
imagine.
search and destroy, right? It's not like the early rounds are not going our way. We get picks, we get bloods. It comes down to, oh my God, there's 20 seconds left. It's a 2vx whatever scenario, all sorts of like crazy randomness, chaos happens. So we've just been trying to make sure that when we get control early in the round, we maintain that control throughout the rest of the round and make sure that no surprises hit us. And I don't want to move back into the past too far, but I remember coming on your show last year and you're talking to me about my EG team going into the champs, and we were talking about control, how that was one of our weakest modes. What happened at that champs? We showed up and we were one of the best control teams there. So we're hoping to have the kind of the same turnaround going to this champs. Hopefully history can repeat itself, except that we don't choke like we did last year.
Last question for you, though, as we kind of wrap this all up. You guys have Minnesota first in the playoffs, a team that historically in the regular season you guys have done extremely well versus in the past. But beyond that, oddly enough, you guys are one of the only teams out there that have hard stuck vetoes, at least through the regular season, hard stuck vetoes for every mode. And beyond that, add to the oddity, those are some of Minnesota's best overall maps that you typically veto out. So besides that whole vetoing process, is there anything in particular that you're trying to bring to this matchup versus the Rocker to start off playoffs?
Well, I think the biggest thing for our team and our roster, like for our mindset, is we can't overlook this team. If you look at Call of Duty Champs, especially last year, anything can happen. I'm sure FaZe thought that they had that series against 100T.
Yeah,
sure, a lot of people did. But it's never in the bag. The win is never secured until you hit that final tick, until the game scoreboard comes up and says that you win. It's never over. So despite that they're going to have Exceed playing for God RX, that can't affect us at all. We have to be going into this, the toughest match is the one you're about to play. So we have to keep our eyes focused on whatever's in front of us. And right now it's Minnesota. This is a team we have a lot of respect for. Obviously, they had a lot of success earlier in the season when it was all on LAN. We also have a lot of respect for their coaching staff, so we know that they're going to be well studied against us. It's just going to come down to who performs on that day. A lot of people say that Call of Duty, especially this game, it's a lot of day to day.
Yeah.
We just have to show up and play our best on that day, and that's all that matters. Throughout this whole tournament, doesn't matter who you're playing, who you're matching up against. If you want to be the best, obviously you have to beat the best, and all it takes for this tournament is being better on that day.
Rev, thanks so much for joining me, man. It's always a pleasure to talk COD, especially when it's your own squad. A lot of insight and a lot of value, and best of luck, man, in the playoffs.
Thank you very much. Listen, I could talk about Call of Duty all day, as I'm sure you know. And look, to all the fans out there, I read comments like, everywhere, like Twitter, Reddit. Like, I see a lot of people want this type of content. Alan, you do a great job at uploading this type of content. It's now up to the community. Go show some support. Watch this type of stuff. The more views that we can generate on content like this, the more that we can invest and build this type of stuff. I love talking high-level Call of Duty. I love talking about all the stuff that goes into it. We just need more people to watch and take note and show that this content is needed.
Well, thank you so much for that, and I will just put the disclaimer that Revan is not a paid actor supporting
No,
this show.
I'm not. Oh, look, listen, at one point in time, I was in the same shoes you're in right now, an upcoming caster. You're trying to make a name for yourself and create your own content. There's a lot of people trying to do this, and, everybody out there, from the pros to the fans, we need to be supportive of more content like this if we want the team to grow and if we want to educate the general public about this.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Revan. Again, thanks so much for your time, man. I'll let you get back to work. I know you're a very studious guy, and we'll hopefully be able to catch up with you after the season all comes to a conclusion.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Alan.
You got it. The good news for New York here is that they play up against the Minnesota Rocker first, a team that they've played twice. They've smoked them both times. Both of them were relatively recently. Revan's also one of those guys that'll be battle planning pretty extensively against this Minnesota Rocker team. They will be a bit of a wild card because Exceed is playing instead of God RX, but you have to know that the New York Subliners will be taking this match extremely seriously and then putting their gaze on what very well could be coming next. I've got New York taking this matchup without much cause for concern. It just comes down to if they look good and polished, can they go further in this upper bracket? That is yet to be determined. If you enjoy this video series, make sure you not only subscribe and ring the notification bell to know when more pop up, but if you missed some of my previous playoff picture episodes, you can go to the playlist on my channel to find more of the teams that we've done so far. Till the next one, though, hope you guys out there keep pulling it down. Later. Bye-bye.